Have you ever read a Tudor biography and found yourself shouting, "No, don't do it, don't do it," when the person you're reading about is doing something that you know is not going to end well? Well, you're not alone in that. The Tudor era is a gold mine of dramatic decisions and colossal miscalculations. Some of these errors cost people their lives, others damaged England's position on the world stage, and some were just downright embarrassing. So today we are going to count down 5 of the worst Tudor mistakes. Some are personal disasters, like a father who managed to get his daughter executed after she had already been spared once. Others involve misguided diplomacy, espionage gone wrong, and rebellions that probably should have stayed as diary entries. Let's dive in to the top 5 Tudor mistakes. Hey, friend, welcome back to the YouTube channel for the Renaissance English History Podcast. I am your host, Heather. I've been podcasting on Tudor England since 2009 with my show, which makes it the original Tudor History Podcast. I'm delighted that you are here with me. And today, like I said, we are going to count down the top 5 really bad decisions of the Tudor period. I would love to know what you think about this list when we get done. Are there ones that I included that you wouldn't have? Or are there ones that you would have included that I didn't? Let me know in the comments after the video. Let's get started with a really bad decision to argue theology with your very broody husband who is very changeable and also could have you killed. And that's what Catherine Parr did. Catherine Parr was Henry VIII's sixth and final wife. And unlike her immediate predecessor, she was really, really intelligent. And she somehow managed to live to tell the tale of being married to Henry, but just barely by the skin of her teeth. Catherine was a reform-minded Protestant who enjoyed debating religious doctrine. The problem, of course, was that her husband had zero tolerance for being contradicted, especially by a woman. And especially when he was in a bad mood, which was often thanks to his festering ulcers and general paranoia. Catherine also had a lot of enemies with the conservatives at court who wanted to bring her down and wanted to basically tear apart the Protestant movement anyway. So, it really wasn't a good time to be arguing theology in general when you're queen, and especially not when you've got a husband like Henry. So, according to John Fox's account, Catherine got into theological discussions with Henry and pushed her evangelical views a bit too far. The conservative Bishop Gardiner saw an opportunity and convinced Henry that she was becoming a subversive influence. A warrant for her arrest was drawn up. Now, Catherine was tipped off just in time. She went full damage control. She threw herself at Henry's feet, claimed that she only ever argued to distract him from his pain and to benefit from his superior wisdom. She was, after all, a woman, and she desperately needed his guidance. And that flattery hit the spot. When the guards arrived to arrest her, Henry actually sent them packing with a beating. Moral of the story, never assume that you can debate with Henry VIII, even if, and maybe especially when, you're his queen. Let's talk about the number 4 spot, Essexs Rebellion, a vanity project that kind of got out of hand. So, by the late 1590s, Robert Devereux, Earl of Essex, had fallen hard from favor. His campaign in Ireland had been an expensive catastrophe. Troops were dying of disease, morale was crumbling, and Essex quietly negotiated a truce with the rebel leader Hugh O'Neill, behind Elizabeth's back no less. And then, in a move that somehow managed to be both reckless and theatrical, he disobeyed orders and rushed back to England. Still in his travel-stained gear, he burst into Elizabeth's private chambers unannounced. For a queen obsessed with image and protocol, this was beyond shocking. She kept her cool, but Essex had crossed the line and everyone knew it. What followed was one of the most misguided coups in English history. In February 1601, Essex raised a pitiful rebellion. That really is the only word to describe it. Hoping that the people of London would rally to his cause and help him overthrow Robert Cecil and reclaim his place by the Queen's side. Except they didn't. And the whole thing fizzled out by dinner time. Essex was arrested, tried, and executed. His mistake: arrogance, misreading the mood of the nation, and most fatally thinking Elizabeth would forgive him one more time when she didn't. All right, let's talk about number 3, the Lopez Affair, spy games and scapegoating. Dr. Rodrigo Lopez was Queen Elizabeth's personal physician. He was also a Portuguese-born crypto-Jew, a skilled courtier, and, just to complicate things, a part-time spy. A little side hustle going on. It was a career that required a lot of caution, and unfortunately, Lopez miscalculated just how dangerous Elizabeth's court could be. After the death of his patron, Francis Walsingham, Lopez kept playing the espionage game, juggling communication with Spanish and Portuguese agents, trying to broker peace talks between Elizabeth and Philip II, likely with dreams of retirement and a hefty reward. Enter Robert Devereux, the aforementioned Earl of Essex, who we had just talked about, who was, of course, bold and ambitious, and at this point still eager to prove his loyalty. Essex accused Lopez of plotting to poison the Queen, presenting it as a Spanish-backed conspiracy. Now, was there a real plot? Almost certainly not, but Lopez's web of secretive dealings gave Essex just enough threads to twist it into a rope. Lopez was convicted of treason, and he was hanged, drawn, and quartered in 1594. He died protesting his innocence, crying out that he loved the Queen as much as he loved Jesus Christ, which, of course, was a line that, considering he was a crypto-Jew, only fueled anti-Semitic mockery. Now, Lopez's fatal mistake wasn't treason, of course. It was thinking that he could outmaneuver the power players without protection. His protection had died. Francis Walsingham had died. And also that Elizabeth's court had room for independent operators. There were no independent contractors at Elizabeth's court. All right, number 2, the rough wooing. Henry VIII tries diplomacy with a sledgehammer. Let's talk about a mistake that left scorch marks across Scotland. In 1542, James V had died, leaving behind his 6-day-old baby, Mary, Queen of Scots. Henry VIII, ever the opportunist, sees a golden opportunity: marry his son Edward to baby Mary and unite the two kingdoms under English control. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. He even gets a treaty signed, the Treaty of Greenwich, which says that Mary will be sent to England when she's 10 years old. Now Henry, being Henry, gets impatient. He demands that the baby be handed over immediately, which naturally enrages the Scots. Of course it does. They tear up the treaty before it's even ratified, and instead of dialing it back a little bit like you might do, Henry doesn't. He goes full scorched earth, literally. He launched a brutal campaign through the borders, burning, looting, pillaging, general rampaging, known later as the rough wooing, because of course there's no better way to get a girl to pay attention to you and marry you than to make war on her country. It's a disaster. Far from winning hearts and minds, Henry's violence pushed the Scots straight into the arms of the waiting French, and Mary was whisked off to France, betrothed to the Dauphin, and England lost any real chance of a peaceful union. This, of course, wasn't just a failed diplomatic plan. It was a flaming PR nightmare that fueled resentment for generations. Now, of course, England would be united eventually under that same line when Mary's son, James VI of Scotland, became James I of England, and there was the Union of the Crowns 100 years later. But it wasn't the way Henry had intended, and the rough wooing certainly cost England a lot in treasure and lives and just general goodwill. Now, what I think is the number one dumb move of the Tudor period is Jane Grey's dad starting a rebellion while she's in the Tower. Let's talk about it. Lady Jane Grey had already lost everything: her crown, which she didn't even want, her freedom, and most likely her future, when her father decided to make things worse. After Mary I's accession in 1553, Jane, who had reigned for just 9 days, was imprisoned in the Tower of London, and although she had been the figurehead of the attempted Protestant succession, Mary seemed inclined to spare her. She recognized that Jane was young and was probably a pawn, had been manipulated by more powerful figures, including her own father, Henry Grey, Duke of Suffolk. But then, in early 1554, Jane's father decided to throw his lot in with Wyatt's rebellion, a rising meant to stop Mary's marriage to Philip of Spain. It failed spectacularly, and the rebels were scattered and Suffolk was captured. The fallout was swift. Jane was already a figurehead of one failed coup, and suddenly she became a liability. She and her husband, Guilford Dudley, were executed soon after. It's hard to imagine a more dumbass, self-defeating move. Your daughter is in the Tower awaiting judgment, and you launch a rebellion against the woman who is holding her fate in her hands. If Jane had any chance of survival at all, her father's rebellion certainly sealed her doom. I mean, it would have been really smart to go to Mary and say, hey, there's this rebellion being planned. Hey, why don't you also release my daughter? But, that didn't happen. Bad decision-making, so many bad decisions all around. Anyway, Tudor England did not have much room for error. One bad decision could cost you or your daughter their head and spark a war. These 5 blunders show how ambition, vanity, and really bad timing could unravel careers, cost lives, and change the course of history. So next time you're thinking about a decision, weighing options, and thinking, surely it'll work out. It'll be fine. The Tudors thought that too. Anyway, let me know in the comments which other bad mistakes, moves you would have included, and which you think should be added to the list, and maybe we'll do a follow-up on this. All right, my friend, if you made it this far in the video and you enjoyed it, you know what I'm about to say. I sure would appreciate a press of that like button. It helps to feed that algorithm and get our content to even more people. And I hope I earned your subscription to my channel, where I put out content like this on the regular. If you want to keep watching content of people making bad decisions and getting caught up in scandals that they probably shouldn't have been involved in, check out this video on the top Tudor bad boys, the boys we love to hate. And here's a video that YouTube thinks you will enjoy. All right, my fellow Tudor nerd and friend, thank you so much for being here. Remember, you are deeply loved. I am so glad I share the planet with you. I will be back very, very soon. Don't forget to drink your water. Bye-bye.